So it might be a little bit windy, but I've given up waiting for a calm day. It's time for the outdoor flight test of the high-grade Mark drone. Hi, I'm Ash from DroningON, and you've seen us unbox it, walk through the app, and even demonstrate its indoor autonomous flying capabilities. Now it's time for the outdoor flight test. So hopefully by now you've seen part 1 and part 2, where I basically unbox and inspect this lovely little compact drone. Now there are a few issues with it, as mentioned in part 2 in the indoor flight test, which is that it has no GPS. It relies entirely on some new technology called VIO, Visual Inertial Odometry, which basically uses this little camera here to position the drone. The downside of that is, of course, the drone is only going to be as stable at position hold as the environment that you're flying it in. So in an outdoor environment like this here, where you've got lots of green grass, if when you're flying it at low altitude, that 45-degree camera there can only see grass, and if it all looks the same, then it may struggle to hold its position. However, if you've got other elements in the frame, such as that bit on the ground there, leaves, some bottles, and also, of course, as you ascend up higher, you can see trees and other surroundings, then VIO is going to work really well. The downside, of course, is that when you start taking this drone further away from you, to a certain range, especially if you've got the controller for this drone, you'll be able to take it much further. You are entirely dependent on VIO working and not failing. And if VIO fails and your drone is 200 meters that way or 300 meters that way, of course you might be able to see it line of sight. Legally you need to keep it in line of sight anyway, but it does mean that when the battery starts to fail, if you can't fly it home manually, then you might get into problems. So I don't think that this drone should be used for any sort of long range. I don't think it should be used with a transmitter, really. That's my personal view. This is a selfie drone for use at short range, perhaps between here and the tree over there, and no further really, because a beginner or somebody that doesn't really understand their drones, coupled with VIO, may get themselves into problems. Anyway, it is windy today, as you can see from the trees, but we're going to give it its best shot and see how it does. So let's get it set up and in the air. So hopefully by now you've already seen part 1 and part 2, so you know how to connect the phone, etc. Now, one thing I will say, I've noticed in a few test flights with this that you can get a lot of fogging in the camera lens. So before you fly this drone, clean the lens a little bit, but also acclimatize it to the air temperature. So leave it outside where you're going to be flying it, not in a bag because it's going to stay warm in there, but leave it out in this sort of air temperature. That means you won't get so much fogging then when you fly it. Also, when you start it up, make sure it's on a flat surface and then turn it on, because remember, that is calibrating the accelerometers now. So leave it flat until you get the little startup tone, and then you'll be safe to go, hopefully with a nice stable flight. If you don't calibrate it on the flat, you may get issues when you get it airborne. You may end up with a flyaway. Now, one comment I've seen on the comments section of the campaign page is people getting confused at this point. It's quite simple. If you look at the screen, you can see it says the Take drone, and there's a picture of Take in the background. That's not Mark. So swipe to the left twice, and then you'll see Mark. Now, if you click connect, it will take you onto the drone. So we've now got our live feed going. As I mentioned in the first parts, there's no calibration necessary on this drone other than when you first turn it on. So you can see we've now got our live feed, which is all working nicely. Let's put it on a stable bottom. Now I'm going to set the EIS motor on because it is windy today and we're going to need it. I'm also going to go into settings and turn the speed of it, the sensitivity, to N, which is the fastest. The other thing I'm going to turn on is even return loss, which means if it disconnects from the phone, it's going to try its best to fly back to home. This is why I also think that GPS is a big issue, because if your phone dies, this is entirely reliant on what it can see from its VIO camera. It's not going to be able to use GPS to get its way back to you. So you need to know what you're doing with this drone. So always check around you, make sure no one's here. Let's start recording on the drone. Recording is started. Click to outdoor mode as well on the mode setting on the left. That's very important. A few people have got that wrong. And then click take off. Get a countdown and it's going to go up. And there we go. Now there is quite a bit of wind coming in, but despite that, that is a lovely, stable hover, I think you'll agree. If I just stand still for a bit, just to show you how stable that is. Obviously the wind's coming through now and it's doing its best to deal with that, but it's not doing too badly at all. The wind is really getting pretty rampant now, but it's returned back to where it was. We took off from here, remember? The wind is drifting this way, so it's dragging it there, but it's doing its best to stay and return to the original spot, which again, the camera at the moment, the VIO camera, can only see grass. So it's doing a very good job. Looking at the live feed, very stable, so let's get a bit of altitude. Even the shadows on the ground are going to help VIO. Looks lovely up there in the air. Let's fly it forward a little bit. Very, very stable flight. Very, very calm. It's flying downwind at the moment, so it's doing well not to be racing down at too much speed. Controls feel really, really good as well. Again, considering this isn't a GPS drone, it is very, very stable. I'm going to turn it around to face us. Now, this is the first problem I have with this. Dobby has an adjustable camera, whereas this doesn't, and that's such a shame because you really do need that adjustable camera. Otherwise, your entire framing when you're trying to get somebody in the shot is by adjusting the drone position, and that's a real pain. But let's stop recording. Let's take a photo. Now the wind really is picking up, but it's doing a great job of staying in position. So, photo. Now that is into sun, which isn't ideal. So let's swap positions. I'm going to fly it past me and I'm going to go underneath it. So if I'm in the sun, hopefully you'll get a better picture of me then. Fly it backwards. Whoa, the wind really is picking up now. But that's a better picture of me now at least. So you can see me in the shot nice and clearly. There we go. Let's take another photo now. So hopefully that photo looks good. It is a high resolution, I think it's 13 megapixel camera. So should be pretty good. Now, whilst we're here, not a great place to try it because there are a lot of trees around, but let's try follow me. So go to intelligent tracking, highlight me, click start tracking, and it's logged on to me. I'm going to start recording as well. Now the wind really is picking up here. Not ideal test scenario, but you can see the bars, the black bars appearing very slightly on there as well. That's because of the cropping and panning and scanning. Now at this point, it just felt far too windy to carry on, and so I landed the Mark drone and tried follow me a few days later, when the weather had calmed a little bit. I initially set Mark to track me, and it does so really nicely. The EIS is very smooth, but you'll notice that as I pass behind my lovely partner, the Mark gets a little bit confused and instead locks onto her as I run off into the distance. Not a big issue, and this is even common with DJI's active track when you're amongst other people. After realising that I'm no longer the focus of the tracking, I ask her to move around a bit and Mark tracks her very nicely. It is late evening at this time and so the image is a little bit on the dark side, but it's still pretty clear, although a little bit wobbly at times due to EIS. You could of course run the footage through additional stabilisation in post-editing if necessary. Do note of course that any abrupt changes in direction with this drone will result in black bars appearing. These are where the 4K image is being panned and scanned in order to provide 1080p EIS. So try to keep all flying movements calm, and of course also when using follow me, keep the subject moving smoothly to avoid these bars from appearing. I also tried some low altitude flying and you can clearly see that this field is just literally grass. But the position hold worked brilliantly, despite the VIO sensor only being able to see the green of that grass. Just before leaving, I did a little fly out shot, but once again, the lack of tilt on the camera shows its limitations, and I actually missed getting us in frame. A few days later, again, the wind still hadn't calmed, and that's due to a hurricane that's passing by our shores at the moment, and so I did a bit more testing just to see how it would cope in that wind. So remember, no GPS on this drone, only the VIO system is keeping this in position, and look at that stability. That's pretty good, isn't it? Very, very clever system, this. You can see on the screen we've got our live feed, so I'm also going to start recording video there. And let's fly it up and away a little bit. Again, you can see it's maintaining its stability, its position really, really well. Unfortunately, that wind is blowing the drone all around, and that means that the EIS is having to work on overtime, unfortunately. But I must say, for a tiny little drone, it's doing very well. Now I'm making it move forward very slowly here to try and get something a little bit cinematic. Let's try a slow yaw pan. So let's go around to the left. Yeah, now you can see the EIS struggling a lot there, and it is sadly because of this wind. If I'd have got up a little bit earlier today, it would have been much easier. But it's holding its position, that's what's important. And remember, this thing doesn't have a GPS, so let's fly it around a little bit. Let's take it down a bit lower and fly it downwind. Now, despite the wind coming in from behind us, it is holding its position really well and fighting against that wind. In fact, it's not so windy down here, so that's a bit better. It's doing really well. Go down a bit lower, get out of that wind. There we go. So let's see if we can fly it through this gap. So this is a good test of the app precision, I guess. I must say the controls on the app are really, really nice. Very, very intuitive, very easy. It's going exactly where I'm telling it to go. And to be able to fly it this close to bushes and things is testament to that.
So overall, Mark is not a bad little drone, and I'll put some positives and negatives on screen for you now. The Mark app does have many other nice features that I really wanted to test out, but unfortunately, due to the wind, I wasn't able to. However, many of these features really do need a GPS in order to function properly. For example, rotating around a point of interest isn't much use if the drone actually doesn't geographically know the position difference between itself and that point of interest. Its biggest issues are the lack of GPS. Despite the VIO system being impressive, it just isn't really geared up for outdoor flight, especially if you're new to drones. The transmitter is a concern because it means that people are going to be able to fly further away, and if the VIO system fails at long distance, you may not get that drone back. It is a shame that the campaign page didn't make this clear to the non-technical backers. The other issue is the non-tiltable camera. Although taking a closer look at the Mark drone, I see no reason why this would not be possible as an aftermarket modification. In fact, I may attempt it. The flight time is impressive for a tiny battery, and that does make it slightly better than Dobby, as does its camera, which also provides far better clarity. But Dobby has GPS, and for that reason, it would have to be my preference between the two, especially as they're about the same price. If of course you've got a little bit extra to spend, you could also consider a used DJI Spark, which of course gives you not only more stability and reliability, but also a mechanical 2-axis gimbal. Anyway, I hope that this review has been useful. Please do comment below with your thoughts, give this video a thumbs up, and if you're not already a subscriber, hit that button now. Thanks very much for watching.